Well, TGIF, my friends, thank God it's Friday. Or to be politically correct, I should say, thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness we made it to Friday. Woo! I'm really surprised we have this many people in here. You know why? Because this guy, Ed Gein, is gross. This man does everything, okay? Or did, all right? He died in 1984. There's a picture of the house that he was living in, okay? He has had a very strange obsession with his mother. Okay? Now, let's look at all the different movies that have been loosely based on him. Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, which actually kind of made Anthony Perkins crazy. He didn't do well after doing that movie. Rob Zombie has done a whole series based off of Ed Gein. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, loosely based again. Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs. And I think you remember what Buffalo Bill did. He was making a woman's suit. Well, that's what Ed did, because he had such a mommy complex. Well, hold on, Luanna. I did not know this. Luanna said she's all rested up and her youngest got married on Sunday. Well, I bet that was absolutely beautiful. Hey, send me some pictures. I love wedding pictures. V. Oakley knows. She said it puts the lotion in the basket or it gets the hose again. Yeah, he did that. Now, I cheated and I already watched the first episode of it this morning. It's on Netflix. And it's messed up, dudes. It's messed up. I mean, there's Ed right there when he was putting together his woman's suit. Okay? There's the real Ed. He was committed to a mental hospital because, well, he's criminally insane and he's a schizophrenic. But today, first we're going to tell everyone hi, and we are going to celebrate Mean Girls Day. All right? What a better way to celebrate Mean Girls than one of the meanest people that has ever been put on this planet. October 3rd is known as Mean Girls Day because Aaron Samuels asked Lindsay Lohan, Katie in the movie, what's today? And she goes, it's October 3rd. And she's like, Aaron Samuels asked me what today was. Today is October 3rd. So how are we going to celebrate?
Do you guys know what day it is?
No.
On October 3rd, he asked me what day it was. It's October 3rd.
Guys, it's October 3rd, aka Mean Girls Day.
Oh.
Beloved by fans, all because Katie's crush, Aaron, spoke to her in math class, not asking for a date, but asking what day it was. So if you want to celebrate, here are some suggestions. We've shared them over on today.com. Of course, you can wear pink, even if it's not Wednesday. You could do your own performance of Jingle Bell Rock with your...
You know, I think we should do that. I think we should get these costumes. Who's in? Angel P, Susan, True Crime Beat, Of course, me. The more the merrier. Who wants to recreate the Jingle Bell Rock song? That would be great. Chrissy would do it because I know Susan knows how to shake her boo thing. I know she does.
Besties, and you can always quote one of the movie's countless beloved lines, like this one.
That is so fetch. Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
Gosh, it's
iconic.
Like, can you ever get sick of this movie?
No.
I've never seen it.
You've never seen Mean Girls? Well, I guess why would you?
It's like
Why would
Die
I?
Hard.
Why?
Yeah.
But it's really good.
Go watch
It's
Die Hard
really
again.
good.
What's it about?
Mean Girls.
Mean Girls.
Yeah.
I think that
Mean
the title
Girls in
is
high
pretty much.
school.
I mean, what are they doing? They're being mean.
Mean
As
Girls.
girls,
That's a whole movie.
maybe girls relate to it a
It's
lot
an
more.
apocalyptic teen story.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Right?
There's a
And-
musical?
There's a musical actually
Yeah.
coming out. It's going to hit
Oh,
theaters
it's
in
on
January.
Broadway. Hey, thanks for watching.
Alan Craig don't even know what it is. Susan said she had a hobo Santa costume. Well, are you a good seamstress? If not, Diana is. And we can get that all slutted up for you, Susan, so we can do this dance for everybody. You know, Christmas is just around the corner, Susan. You know what I mean? All right, today, again, we're talking about Ed Gein, which fits because it's National Mean Girls Day. And he's one of the evilest people that have ever been put on this planet. OMG, he's bad. So I'm going to start with the Netflix trailer because you guys really need to check it out.
There's something real dark about you, Eddie Gein.
Eddie, you're a mess. Only a mother could love you.
By the way, Laurie Metcalf, who already was an amazing actress, she needs an award for this. She will blow your freaking mind. Whoa. Carrie said, could you imagine how the kids felt that he babysit when they found out what he did? Ooh, I never thought about that. I think about some of the women that dodged a bullet because he wanted a woman's touch around this place. But his mom said women are evil and they are whores and they are Jezebels. He went to dig his mom up out of her grave, but instead picked the grave next to her and dressed this dead body up to look like his mother. Then he went a little further and he started dressing as his mother. Now, one of the early things that happened to him is he would wear his mom's bra, panties, and, hose, her nylons. And he would, to say it plainly, he would jerk off. Well, she caught him. And she said, now you've brought sin into this house. So Augusta, that's his mother's name, Gein, made him stand naked in front of her while she read him the Bible. Wow. Yeah. Nothing weird about that.
When I look back upon my life, it's always with a sense of shame.
Like what I just said. He would have to stand in front of her naked while she read the Bible.
I've always been the one to blame for everything I long to do. No matter when or where or who.
Is this
It's okay.
Okay, that's him dressed as his mom. Yeah. That's him dressed as his mom. Okay. And I love Charlie Hunnam. He was my favorite character in that show, Sons of Anarchy.
I just feel like I'm a puzzle, and none of the pieces fit.
It's a sick.
What did you do?
You're the one can't look away.
It's a sin.
Yep, that's one of his suits he wore. Look at that. That's one of the suits he wore. So, like in Silence of the Lambs, Thomas L. Harris based Buffalo Bill off of Ed Gein, especially the whole lotion, the lotion, the lotion, the lotion. Well, they found out later that he was using lotion on these women he was digging up from the Plainfield Cemetery. Shonda said she can't wait to watch it. Woo! Woo! And remember, you're watching a movie, basically. Real life is 10 times worse. Real life is 10 times worse.
It's a sin.
And it came out on Mean Girls Day. Chrissy said, Stacey Eder, I'm not letting him get out of it. I'd watch it in the daylight, but Shonda, she's more of a spooky girl. I have a feeling she'll have it on at midnight tonight. Text me, girlfriend. Text me. I want to know what everyone thinks about this. So he confessed to 2 murders. All right. This is a barkeep at a local bar in Plainfield, Wisconsin. And he confessed to the murder of a woman that owns a hardware store. They found her hanging upside down in one of the buildings at his farm. Okay. And then they realized he had a lot of shit going on around there. Then they realize he's crazy. He's crazy. As in, he's unfit to stand trial. So once they got him where they thought he was okay enough to stand trial, all the shit went down again. Because he wanted to wear his mom's clothes to trial. What the F? Holly said, I don't think I should watch this. I would watch one episode at a time. Okay? Now, Shonda, she's going to crash it. She's going to binge it. Okay? She's going to absorb it all in because it is spooky season. Good morning, Mallory Parker. All right, let's get to it. We're going to start with his childhood because it's messed up. This is from That's Just Evil. Again, there he is in his house. What he's looking at I know the box says soda crackers. He's looking at, I'm going to use the word petrified pieces of women's genitals. Yes. He had a whole drawer full of not vulvas. Yeah. For his woman suit to be like his mom.
A place where your mother whispered warnings of damnation, and the outside world was painted as a pit of sin. Now imagine that twisted environment, shaping the mind of someone who would go on to commit some of the most brutal and horrifying acts imaginable.
Ilyanka, who took this photo? What, the one of the house? What photo you're talking about? The one of his mother, Augusta, or the one of the house? Luana said, "Dear Lord, this is a whole new level of sick." And the FBI Behavioral Science Unit said he is not a natural-born killer. He's a truly criminally insane person. Ilyanka, yes, the sex parts. The FBI. They actually had him walk them through the house to show him what he had been up to. And he willingly did it. And kept saying, "Mother told me. Mother's here. Mother's here. Do you want to see Mother?" FBI's like, "No. Your mother is not here. I can find her. No, I'm not waiting for you to go dig up a grave and bring in another dead body for you to have sex with and say it's your mom. No, thank you. No, thank you."
Imaginable. This is the story of Ed Gein. Not the monster he became, not yet, but the boy he was. A boy whose life was doomed from the very beginning. Edward Theodore Gein was born on August 27th, 1906 in La Crosse, Wisconsin. At first glance, his early life might seem like any other small-town story from the
This guy talks like Kat's dad. Is Kat's dad moonlighting?
early 20th century. But scratch the surface, and you'll find a family dynamic that was, well, let's just say less than ordinary. Ed was the youngest of two boys born to Augusta and George Gein, and if we're being honest, calling George a father is generous. He was an alcoholic who couldn't hold down a job and was known for his explosive temper. He was more of a shadow in the house than a supportive parent. But Augusta, oh, she was a force to be reckoned with. Let's talk a bit more about Augusta. She was a deeply religious woman. And by deeply religious, I mean she took her fire and brimstone sermons and turned them into a daily performance for her children. To Augusta,
Common Sense True Crime said, "How did those FBI agents not end up with serious trauma?" I have a feeling they did. That is not something even the most trained eye and nose could deal with. Debbie, off topic, but I'm eating Violet Crumble ice cream. Do you have Violet Crumbles in the USA? I've never heard of them. Sounds yummy. So Augusta is crazy, but not as crazy as her son. So anytime she would have an argument with Henry or Ed, she would start quoting the book of Ezekiel. And as we said, as we know, Ed got the worst of it because she would make him stand there naked while she read the Bible.
the world outside was a cesspool of sin, and she was determined to protect her boys from its influence. Born in the late 1800s, Augusta was one of 8 children born to immigrants from Prussia. Her family left their homeland as part of the old Lutheran exodus to escape the reforms occurring in their church. The teachings of the old Lutherans were very strict, emphasizing the sinful nature of humanity. This formed the deeply religious belief within Augusta that every person's thoughts and actions were tainted by sin and deserved eternal damnation. Influenced by her upbringing, Augusta ran the household with an iron fist. Every day, she drilled into Ed and his older brother Henry that women, all women except for herself, were vile, wicked creatures designed to lead men astray.
Now, Henry died, and his death certificate, Henry is Ed's older brother. His death certificate said asphyxiation from when they had a fire going. Some people would say that Ed actually killed him because of the way Henry treated their mother. That sounds a little more probable to me than the asphyxiation from the fire. But hey. Uh-oh, Teresa said Ed did it. Melanie's like, I believe it. Yeah, me too.
Imagine growing up hearing that every single day. Of the two boys, Augusta favoured Ed. She saw him as much more obedient than his brother, which made him all the more susceptible to her manipulation. It's no wonder Ed grew up with complicated feelings about women. And Augusta didn't stop at moral lessons. She isolated her family on a desolate farm in Plainfield, Wisconsin, far away from the prying eyes of the world. No friends, no outside influences, just her, George, and her two boys. This is the kind of isolation that could really do something to a person. The farm was a lonely, eerie place. Over 150 acres of barren land, with only the family home sitting in the middle of it. For Ed, this isolation was his entire world. He didn't know what life outside the farm was like, and Augusta made sure it stayed that way. But even within the walls of that farmhouse, Ed's life wasn't exactly cozy. Augusta controlled every aspect of their lives, from what they read, to what they ate, to what they believed. And when George was around, his drunken rages added another layer of fear to the mix. It was a pressure cooker, and Ed was stuck in the middle of it. While at the farmhouse, Augusta stunted Ed's emotional and social development by preventing him from forming any relationships outside the family, particularly with women. She instilled a deep sense of shame and confusion about natural human desires and normal relationships. This isolation made it difficult for Ed to distinguish reality from the distorted views Augusta imposed on him.
Very early on, and they say it's because of the isolation and what his mother was pumping in his head, he could be in an empty room and think he had friends around him. Now, none of this makes up for what he did. Okay? None of it. We're just doing what I call a deep dive.
On top of this, during Ed's only time allowed away from the family farm at grade school, he was awkward and socially withdrawn, constantly bullied for his congenital, lazy eye and the growth on his tongue that affected his speech. Each afternoon when Ed and his brother returned from school, Augusta would remind them about the evils of alcohol and women, reading Bible passages to support these lectures. And if that weren't bad enough, anytime young Ed actually tried to make friends at school, Augusta would excoriate him and tell him the person came from a bad or evil family and ask him if he wanted to become a loser like his father. She also told him that to remain loyal to her, he should remain a virgin, because engaging in those types of activities with women was sinful and would lead to eternal damnation. Fresh on the heels of one of her speeches about the evils of the outside world, Ed uncharacteristically disobeyed his mother's rule and sneaked into the slaughter shed, where he found both his mother Augusta and Father George with a pig carcass hanging upside down for processing. The moment Augusta sliced the pig down the centre to release its intestines, Ed reportedly experienced a feeling of being turned on, which indicates just how confused and disturbed he was becoming as he developed within the dominant worldview of his overbearing mother. In 1940,
Pretty messed up. Pretty messed up. V. Oakley said growth on his tongue. probably from his mom. Because you can't tell me that his mom didn't do something really bad to him. Okay? She told him in order to keep his loyalty to her, he had to remain a virgin.
Ed's father, George Gein, passed away. You might think that his death would have brought some relief to the family. After all, he was a violent drunk who contributed little to their lives. But for Ed, it was the beginning of a new kind of dependence on Augusta. Now it was just Augusta, Henry, and Ed. The dynamic shifted, but the dominance of Augusta remained unshaken. Her clear favoritism of Ed caused tension between the brothers. Ed, who had always been the more obedient and impressionable son, clung to his mother more tightly than ever, while his brother Henry, on the other hand, started to pull away. Henry was the first to question the iron grip of Augusta. He began speaking out against the strict and absurd worldview she was preaching to the boys, even hinting to Ed that their mother might not be the saint she claimed to be. But questioning Augusta, that was a dangerous game. In 1944, tragedy again struck the household. Ed's brother Henry died in what was officially labelled a, quote, brush fire accident.
I don't think anybody believes that Henry really died from a brush fire accident or incident. For one, there's been a lot of talk since 1957, way before my time, saying that the back of his head was crushed and he was already in rigor mortis when the police got there. All right?
On the family farm. But here's where things get suspicious. When the authorities arrived, they found Henry's body in a spot untouched by the fire, with suspicious bruising on his head. Did Ed have something to do with it? We'll never know for sure. But after Henry's death, it was just Ed and Augusta. The next year in 1945, Augusta suffered a series of strokes. For Ed, her declining health was devastating. He devoted himself entirely to her care, but her eventual death in December of that year shattered him. She was his world, his moral compass, his everything. And now an enormous and critical part of his life was gone. Forever. With his mother gone, Ed was left alone on the farm, drowning in grief and isolation. And it was in that isolation that his mind began to unravel. Without Augusta's domineering and controlling presence, the darker corners of his psyche started to take over, eventually leading to the horrible and unimaginable actions that he would unleash onto the world. During his adult life, Ed seemed to live quietly within his community for several years, known by most as a simple, quiet, but slightly weird man. But eventually his terrible deeds were uncovered. When the authorities did finally arrest Ed and conducted a search of his farmhouse, they uncovered a horrific scene that defied comprehension. What they found revealed not only evidence to the cruelty and torture he imposed upon his victims, but also artifacts that suggested a deep and unsettling obsession with human anatomy. These horrifying objects like lampshades, gloves, clothing, and more.
Out of skin. He was making lampshades. He made his own gloves. He had his own suit to wear. Yeah. That's what we're dealing with here.
Or were crafted with unsettling precision and made from human remains that Ed had acquired through grave robbing over the years. He later admitted to making nighttime visits to local cemeteries, where he dug up recently buried individuals to be used for his morbid crafting sessions. These acts of depravity and wickedness later inspired some of the most infamous characters in horror movies and pop culture, such as Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Norman Bates in Psycho, and Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs. Looking back, Ed Gein's early life was a perfect storm of isolation, abuse, and psychological manipulation. Obviously, a terrible childhood does not excuse the horrors he went on to commit, but it helps us understand how a man like this can come to exist. In the end, he was as much a product of his environment as he was of his own dark impulses. A chilling reminder of how deeply our upbringing can shape who we become. Thanks so much for watching.
Woo! Terry. Yeah, he was digging people out of graves and he also killed people. Okay. There's like 7 people they suspect he killed. They can't prove it. They know he killed 2. His brother, that's a big question. But they had to rebury many bodies he had in his house. All right, this is where a criminal psychologist talks about what's wrong with him.
Inspiration behind countless books and horror movies. Ed Gein, the butcher of Plainfield, admitted to 2 murders, but his house of horrors hinted at far greater crimes. But what was going on in the mind of this monster? Was he born evil, or did he become evil along the way?
That's a good question. And I'm not a psychiatrist, so I couldn't help you with that. Was he born that way? Was he just born a sick fuck? Or was the constant abuse by his parents and the isolation, is that what made him crazy? Ilyanka I'd say raised. Cinnamon said product of his environment. Yes.
My name is Dr. Eric Hickey. I'm a criminal psychologist. I work in the areas of sex crimes, homicide, criminal paraphilia, psychopathology, anything on the dark side, and doing it for a long time.
Let's start at the beginning. Ed Gein was born on August 27, 1906, in Plainfield, Wisconsin. Growing up on a farm as the youngest of 2 children, Ed Gein reportedly had a difficult childhood between his alcoholic father and abusive mother. Gein's mother, Augusta, was said to be especially intimidating and even bullied her husband.
So Ed Gein is not alone when we talk about childhood trauma and what he went through with his mother. She was very controlling. She didn't like men per se. She certainly didn't like sex. All of that tells you that he did not bond well with her. We don't see serial killers being raised in normal families. We don't know much about the mother other than how controlling she was. But I believe that Ed Gein's mother suffered terribly when she was a child. And I think that was passed on to her son.
Augusta abhorred all sex and constantly warned her 2 sons about the dangers of women. She even said sex for procreation was horrendous, but tolerated in order to establish a family. She also encouraged Ed Gein to remain a virgin in order to stay loyal to her, which confused him, because it went against the grain of being a normal sexual being.
I think when we look at the Ed Gein case, we can't ignore the very likelihood that the mother was involved with her son sexually, specifically with Ed. I think that helped traumatize him. She has her own sexual hang-ups from her own sexual abuse and then her own attitudes about men and sex. And she probably wanted to teach him about sex. She had a lot of, I think, sexual control over him. And of course, he felt a lot of shame for by masturbating. And he couldn't think about women. He had to think about his mother. So he probably masturbated about his mother. And that was probably traumatic for him as well.
He did. He did. He did. He would put on her underwear, her pantyhose, her bra, and do the dirty to himself.
In his youth, Gein would witness his mother gutting a pig on a farm. When Augusta carved up the pig to remove its intestines, Gein felt sexual arousal. This would be a marker of things to come.
A lot like Dahmer. Dahmer felt like an adrenaline rush an endorphin rush. Okay. And let me tell you something right now. You could put Dahmer, Charles Manson, Ted Bundy, you could put them all in one room. I can tell you right now, all three of them together are nothing compared to Ed Gein. Nothing compared. Nothing. And the funny thing is, well, it's not funny. Jeffrey Dahmer, he committed his crimes in Wisconsin as well, and they were trying to use the Ed Gein defense to get him into a mental hospital. And the judge said, absolutely not. He planned, he calculated, and he ate the people. Just a little fact for you.
Ed Gein admitted that he was sexually aroused by that experience. Ed Gein had a lot of shame. He had shame because his mother made him feel shameful. I don't know if we understand the word shame, the concept of shame. It's far worse than guilt. No one feels guilt. They either are guilty or they're not guilty. But it's not a feeling. It's a fact. Yes, I killed them. Do I feel badly about it? No. That's where the shame can come in. I'm sure that was like acid to Ed Gein in the early days of growing up, how he felt shame about masturbation, about women, about men, about sex at all. It just was all dirty. So that really would be traumatizing to him. Never had a healthy discussion about
along the way.
The hell, I didn't mean to do that. Canadian Cat Lady said it's very difficult to find a person insane in a court of law. It is. You are 100% right. I mean, you are 100% right. The most recent where they were found just way too insane would be the murder of Cash Gurdon. The guy that murdered him, they have just, flat out said he is too nuts to stand trial. Now, most of them, they'll say, okay, we got to treat him for a while, then we'll bring him back.
Station for her. She had such control of his life. I think even in death, that Ed Gein feared his mother. Even in the grave, he felt controlled by her. That having her be in the grave was not enough. He had to have her with him. And so he took her head. And of course, he had access to the body.
He also started digging up other graves and fashioning a skin suit in order to look like his mother, or at least appear more feminine.
I think he developed what we call a Madonna horror complex, where he really loved his mom. I think he wanted to love her, but he also hated her. Off the top of my head, when we talk about those who relate to Ed Gein, I mean, in terms of their MO, I would say that Jerry Brudos had severe mother issues, and he liked to relive his experiences with her by dressing his victims up in her clothing. I think Ed Kemper, by his own words, said, I had this sort of Madonna horror complex with her. I loved her and I hated her. On one of the days I hated her, I went over and said goodbye to her and I killed her. I cut off her head. I used it for a dartboard because I hated her. But then there were days when I really loved her.
In 1954, almost 10 years after his mother died, Ed Gein killed 55-year-old tavern owner Mary Hogan. He got away with this crime, but then, in 1957, hardware store owner Bernice Warden also vanished. Gein was seen in the store purchasing
He killed the barkeeper, Mary, because he said she was a madam to girls in Chicago, and she was not a saint like his mother, but she had a similar build as his mother, and he killed her, and he made a woman's suit out of her.
Freeze the night before. He was arrested that evening, where police discovered Warden's decapitated body hanging upside down in a shed, gutted like a pig. Both women resembled Gein's mother.
Ed Gein chose to kill women who resembled his mother because of the huge impact that she had on his life, the psychological trauma, the sexual trauma. I think all that really played into his need to kill other women and to sort of emulate her and become like her. And I think in the end, his fantasy was to become his mother, thus the skin.
The skin refers to the trove of nightmares police discovered when they entered Gein's home. There was a bowl made from a human skull, a chair, lampshade, and belts made from human skin. Noses, bones, and other remains were strewn about. Heads were discovered in various bags and boxes. On the stove, a heart sitting inside a pot. The home was also trashed. It was littered with crime magazines, newspapers, and clippings about disappearances and unsolved murders.
Serial killers, some keep trophies, some keep souvenirs, some do both. For me, in my work, I identify trophies as like body parts, like an eyeball, fingers, a vagina, a penis. Ed Gein had a compulsion to make belts and jackets and bowls and things. This is a way that he could always have his mother.
Christmas is around the corner, and you all follow true crime, so don't be sending me any homemade crafts, okay? I don't want some human skin belt or lampshade. Good God.
In his fantasy world was also his bizarre trauma about sex and sexuality, but the whole sex part, I think that was important to him. Think about this. He lives by himself. There's no one to hold him accountable. He's able to explore sex by digging up dead people, about killing women, taking body parts. I mean, he lived in this whole dark, dark world. You can imagine walking into his house and seeing how he was living. His house was a house of horrors.
After Gein's arrest, there were rumors that he engaged in cannibalism and necrophilia.
I believe Ed Gein did engage in sexual activity with the corpse. In his fantasy world, this is his mom, and he can do what he wants to her and the next one and the next one. So I think he was sexually involved with all of his victims, sure. I think that he would explore whatever he could explore. He had nothing to stop him. Why wouldn't he then try the blood? I mean, I'd be surprised if he didn't do that. He had some very, very strange ideas about sex and sexuality. I would say he probably did have some cannibalistic acts with his victims. Yeah.
Though the sheer amount of bodies indicated many more victims, Gein insisted that he had only murdered Mary Hogan and Bernice Warden, and that the rest were found by grave robbing. Polygraphs were even administered for other potential crimes he committed, but he passed them all. Gein was arrested but pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity.
I really wish people would lay off this polygraph shit. A psychopath is fine with what a psychopath does. Okay? A psychopath, their pulse doesn't get over 78 when they're killing someone. And they always throw that out there. Well, I passed a polygraph. I mean, hell, we got Sharon Ziggy out there raising money for polygraphs right now. And I'm like, really? What you gonna do? Buy a machine from eBay and you two are gonna do it? They need to lay off that shit.
With a diagnosis of schizophrenia, Gein was deemed not fit to stand trial and was sent to Central State Hospital for the criminally insane. Gein remained in a hospital until his death in 1984.
I believe that Ed Gein was deeply traumatized as a child. We know that schizophrenia develops earlier on, like in your late teens or 20s, and manifests itself then. It's possible that he had moments, because of his trauma from his mother, he could have experienced schizophrenia.
So, when we talk about Ed Gein, was he born a killer or made one?
He really had no way of developing normal social skills because of the family he was raised in. There was nothing there that was conducive to becoming a human being, to being socialized.